What's going on, Minnesota Vikings fans? Welcome to the Purple People podcast. My name is Kyle Smith, and tonight I'm joined by Kyle West. Two weeks in a row. It's going to be a little chaotic.
It's going to be a shit show.
And just like Conor McGregor said, I apologize to absolutely nobody. All right? This is what you get when you sign up for the show. But we're excited because next weekend, not this coming, today is Tuesday, August the 29th of 2023. The following weekend after this one, the Vikings will play their first regular season game. They're hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And today is important because it is final cut / roster day. So we've been talking about this for weeks now, the shining stars in camp. We've seen some people added to the roster in the offseason, removed. There's been some battles in these preseason games. So I'm going to dive right into it. On Friday, or was it Saturday? One of those days, the Vikings had their third and final preseason game. Unfortunately,
it was on Saturday.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. We were all busy with other things. Being completely honest, we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. I will highlight it for you. The Vikings are 0-3 in the preseason, and that absolutely means we're winning the Super Bowl, right? No, it doesn't mean anything. Those don't count to the regular season. This is an evaluation period. Couldn't care less. The Ravens were undefeated for like 5 years, and they barely sniffed the divisional round. So it doesn't mean anything. I will tell you, I did like the opening drive. Very quickly, Jaron Hall had some completions. Dwayne McBride had a touchdown, and everything looked smooth. For the first part of this game, the Vikings were up 17-3. And ironically enough, they lost 18-17 because Minnesota. So that's what happens. It is what it is. But I did like
preseason, and especially when you get into that third preseason game, and Kevin O'Connell even said this in his press conference, you get combinations and rotations of guys that haven't really worked together all that much. You guys who are just flat out not going to make the roster or on the field, and so things get funky and you blow leads, and the third game is really it's to evaluate players on a are you running your route correctly? How do you look defending a route, or how do you look in pass protection? It's not about the big picture. It's really about the micro. You're looking at the micro in a game like that.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to be honest, Kyle and I were starting the show up, and we always chat before we get started. We're not as into this as we used to be. And I think there's a fair reason for that. It's not us, choosing to be lazy, but these games don't have as much on the line. I mean, this is so frequent and so soon. In recent memory, I can tell you back when I was, if you've been following the show for a while, I am a traveling road service. I've been all over the world doing this show, broadcasting from God knows where. And my last duty station when I was in the military was in El Paso, Texas. And I remember the Vikings getting Kirk Cousins, and I was excited because he was going to play in preseason against Denver. And we got to see what he looked like. Kirk played 0 snaps this preseason.
Yeah.
They're not doing it anymore. They're not risking star players getting hurt on a preseason game. And I understand why. Some old heads will disagree. That's fine. But I get why they're doing it. Sean McVay of the Rams is kind of the innovator of that. And this is a Sean McVay guy, Kevin O'Connell. So am I mad about that? No. That doesn't mean I don't care about the shining stars in camp. We're going to talk about it because some of these guys made the roster. They weren't even drafted.
Ivan Pace Jr. made the roster.
We're going to talk about. Yeah, there's some shining stars to talk about, but I'm not going to put and dedicate all my time to these preseason games where it's a lot of backups and third string and practice squad maybes. But we will say, hey, the Vikings are 0-3. There is some stuff we want to talk about there. The O-line changed and the offense fell apart. I think that's the Achilles heel of this team and the starting rotation. The offensive line is going to make or break the season because the skill positions are fine. I think Brian Flores is the defensive coordinator. It's going to bring a lot out of some unnamed and unknown household players. But you know what? That offensive line is where it stops and starts, and I don't like where we're at as a whole. But we'll see. And I agree with Jonathan here. The O-line changed and the offense fell apart in the game. And it shows on the scoreboard. It is what it is. Jake's in here. What's up, man? Yeah, busy off season. Thankful we're back. Yeah, we're just talking about that. Everything starts next weekend. We'll let you know of any signings or anything next week. We'll do our prediction of the game, but we wanted to hit the Cardinals game pretty fast. I know some other shows like to break it down, and that's fine. Good on them. We'll find some information from them. But quickly here, Jaron Hall played the whole game, which I love, giving him exposure. 16 of 27, 178 yards through the air, 21 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He did get sacked 6 times, and I will say a couple of those are on him from the highlights of the show. But, some of that's from the crappy offensive line play. But he had a respectable rating. I'm glad he threw a touchdown. I don't know. I'm happy. I'm happy that he got some playing time, and he looked better. I mean, overall, he looked better from preseason 1 to 2 to 3, and that's all you can ask for. And it showed because he ended up, spoiler alert, making the 53-man roster. So.
Yeah, and games like that are important, and those reps are important for a player like Hall, who the only way you're going to get better is to be out there on the field and working in the system in a version of the offense against a defense that's not your own. It's funny, I'm sitting here, we're talking about preseason, how much the league has changed in just the time since you and I were watching, because you remember years ago when the third preseason game was your tune-up game for regular
dress
season.
Rehearsal, yeah.
Third preseason game was dress rehearsal game, dude, where you would have your starters, for the most part, would be on the field for the first half, and sometimes coaches would play them into the first drive on the opening portion of the third quarter just to get them used to coming out of, halftime and back out into game speed. And you're right. Now you're looking at preseason where starters don't even sniff the field. I mean, there's no Jefferson, no Hawkinson, no Kirk Cousins. I mean, none of those guys are even, and as fans anymore, we don't even question it. Like, I would be concerned if the Vikings put Justin Jefferson on the field in a preseason game.
I'd be pissed if he went out there. I'd be pissed because you're risking it. If it happens in the season, it happens in the season. But yeah, I'm 100% with you. And
so I get it. And it's even when we talk about, the regular season is starting in 2 weeks basically. With the extra game, I know you can't afford to lose any of them, but the first regular season game is kind of a tune-up. It's a little bit of a tune-up. Like, you can be a little flat, I think, in that first game, and then kind of kick it into high gear on week 2 because of that extra regular season game they have now.
Jake, I'll put it to you this way. I understand your point, brother, and I'm going to say it this way because this is what makes sense in my simple brain. If you leave your wallet in your center console in your car, someone smashes your windows out and steals it, there was nothing to prevent that other than the wallet not being in there. But if you leave the doors unlocked, that's kind of your fault, right? That's what I equate to preseason and regular season games. If they're going to get hurt in the regular season, we can't avoid it. It's going to happen unless you're not playing them, hence taking the wallet out of the car. But we're not going to do that. I need Justin Jefferson on the field being awesome. So that's the only reason I say that. I understand why they're doing it. And because it swept the league by storm, and think about it. I'm not saying that the injuries aren't there. There's been a couple guys that are injured, especially on this team. James Lynch has tore his ACL. A couple of mainstay guys in other teams have got hurt, but it's far less of those. So you have at least one running back tear their ACL every preseason, every year. You'd have one quarterback that goes down for whatever reason. We're not having that because they're not at risk to do it. It's kind of like when I do dog training. First thing I ask people when they have a dog in their house that's tearing shit up, well, what are they doing? They're tearing up all my shoes. Where do you leave your shoes? On the floor. Well, pick them the fuck up. Don't leave your shoes on the floor, and they literally can't chew on them. It's the same way of playing these guys. I understand your point though, Jake. I really would like to see something, but that's why they have to emphasize practice. I love the fact that they do multiple joint practices.
Thank you. I can tell we've been doing this for a while because that was the point that I was going to make. Is that The phrasing you used there was funny. You said we would like to see the starters on the field. The Vikings really don't care what we want to see. It's what the coaching staff wants to see. And
Yep.
they get to see the starters in those joint practices go up against other starters. That is the opportunity that you're seeing Justin Jefferson go one-on-one against the Arizona Cardinals defense or the Tennessee Titans defense in those joint practices. Now, we as fans don't really get to see that. We're kind of deprived of that opportunity unless you're going up to training camp to watch the team. And even then, it's a practice. It's different than an actual game time. But I do think they're finding other ways to supplement and get those reps in ways that are still meaningful while also reducing the risk of injury, because it is still practice and it's not quite full speed.
Insert the Allen Iverson. Practice. What are you talking about?
Practice.
I agree, Kyle. And you're right. It's funny. We have been doing this show a while because it just makes sense, And think about it. The initial training camp joint practices, they're muddy. They're ugly. There's a lot of stuff you got to clean up, but at least it's not against the same guys you have a feel for, not only in the training camp and the OTAs, mini camps, all that, but they're going to play against this defense during the week all year. Now, granted, I like that they're playing a challenging defense this year under a guy who knows what he's doing, but it's good to have that, and they have two of those. I think that's amazing. One in the AFC, one in the NFC team. I don't think they're playing either one of those teams this year. I think they do that on purpose. So I like that. It's really cool. But that's the thoughts going forward, on the preseason. Vikings are 0-3. I don't think they've won a preseason game in a couple of years. I don't really care because that didn't matter going into last season when you won 13 regular season games. So I just want to keep everyone healthy. And if you hear Donna's show one more time, I'm going to lose it. Yeah, he's moved on. I don't even know if he's working for anyone right now, but Brian Flores.
I don't care.
I don't care. I'm pumped on Brian Flores. I'm not going to muddy myself on the past when I'm excited about what's about to happen because there's going to be a lot of pressure on the other teams, and we're going to live and die by that. I would rather see them, strike out swinging than just staring at the ball. So I'm pumped about that. By the way, two things. Number one, I forgot to say the name of it. If you're confused, I named this after Jaron Hall, and I'm a big Metallica fan. So is Kyle West. The Hall of Ktulu. Great song from Metallica. Yeah, I just wanted to do something. I couldn't really think of any good play on words with McBride. I'm sure Adam, when he comes back next week, he'll have something cool, but I'm not as clever, so I apologize. And I forgot the other thing. So Kyle West had some controversial stuff he wants to talk about, and I'm ready to hear it because I agree with a little bit of it.
I do. So I always like to think of ways to improve the game, even though the NFL will never listen to my opinion, but I like to share my opinion anyway. That's why we have a podcast. And you guys know one of the things that I always speak about is how I want to see the 53-man roster needs to be larger than what it is. We at least need a 55-man roster, and we need everyone to dress on game day. But here is the other thing that I think the league needs to do. So, and this ties in with our main subject or our main topic today of roster cutdowns. So I think if you drafted a player in, last year's draft class, so they're a rookie, they haven't played. So if it's like a 6th round pick, 7th round pick, the running back, what's his name? McBride. We just waived him. I think he should be able to go right straight on the Vikings practice squad. I think you should be able, so a draft pick should not be subject to the waiver wire. They should just go right straight on the Vikings practice squad. So we took a chance on McBride. He's not going to be on our 53. We're just putting him right out there. No other team has the opportunity to claim him. But after your rookie season, regardless of injury or whatever, you're subject to the waiver wire claim that we have currently. I think that would be an interesting way to protect your draft picks and to say, hey, if we're not going to get any larger than a 53-man roster, we're still protecting our draft capital and saying you have a spot on this team without having to play this stupid game that sometimes I think the Vikings are doing, where it's like, we're going to keep a player on our active roster until week 1, and then we're going to release them and put them on our practice squad because every other team's practice squad is currently set, and there's more of a chance of them making our roster as well. I really think you should just be able to put your draft pick right straight onto your own practice squad rookie season. That's my rant for the day.
Okay, now I have a question with that. Now, is that just draft picks and not undrafted free agents that you lose as well? Because that would you just be stealing a ton of bodies.
No, just draft picks. And my whole thought process is that you are investing draft capital into those players.
I love this idea.
You only have a finite amount of draft picks, and so you're taking a chance on drafting them. If you're an undrafted rookie and you get cut, waiver wire.
Keep going for another 30 seconds. I'm going to put a question up here, and if anybody else joins and sees it, they can do it again. I'm going to rephrase what you just said.
But that's what I would like to see, and I get frustrated sometimes because the NFL does all these rule changes, in terms of like the kicking game and the punting game and special teams and whatnot. And I don't understand why they don't look at more of the fundamentals of the game and like the operations side of things as to how teams are trying to manipulate, waiver wires and whatnot. Like, why can't we sort out that side of the game as well too?
Well, I'm in agreement. So this is not a side that I've heard from you yet, which is fun for me to listen as a fanboy of the team and of the show and of my friends on the show that host too. But also, dude, I love the idea. We've all agreed with this for years now. You can check the archives and go back and watch every episode and like every one of them and pump those numbers up, baby. But we've said it on the show before. You need to be able to dress everyone. See the San Francisco
You really do.
In the championship game last year. Now, granted, if everyone gets hurt, you're screwed anyways. But I never understood how in a college game, Penn State's playing Ohio State, and there's just 200 bodies and uniforms out there. That's crazy. That's crazy to me that we don't adapt that. I don't understand why. I'd love to hear from an official why that's not a thing. But if they're getting paid, I'm sure they would want that shot. And what if you need them and you can't use them? That's
I definitely think the rule change with the quarterback position is an important step towards expanding the roster, where you can have your emergency quarterback dressed on game day. He does not count towards your active. I don't even remember what the number is. 40. How many are active on game day? 40, 43?
I'll check them.
I don't remember. Anyway, but you have your emergency quarterback that if your two starters go down, you've got your third guy who's dressed who can come in and play for the remainder of the game. That's a step in the right direction. So I suppose we will take the wins where we can get them.
55 players are on an NFL team's roster, 53 on the active roster. On game day, 53. However, just 48 players dressed. So there's 5 players who don't. The 48-man team is a welcome change for the NFL. This is May of 2023. So they're closer to that, but still, especially when we get into this depth chart here soon, you'll know why we're saying that. Because
I was going to say,
a little bit of a shock.
That's a good transition to just get into the initial 53-man roster, talking about the quarterbacks. And who brought it up? I believe Jake brought it up in the chat. It was an excellent point that I wanted to loop back to. Initial 53, because this will change before we play the first regular season game. There will be a trade or a cut or something will happen. So this is just, this is the initial 53. I don't believe that this is the final 53 that we will see come week 1 when we play Tampa Bay? Yep. So if we start, I don't know, do you want to go through the list or do you want me to go through it?
I've got it right here, and I'm going to show the one, but I'm going to go backwards from what you said because I thought this was interesting. So I'm sharing the screen now. These are the players, and it says here, Minnesota's front office has traded, waived, or cut 37 players in the past 3 days. So here they are. And I'll go down them very quickly.
Can you zoom in on that?
Yeah, we can go on a little bit. So we have waived players. Tristan Jackson, Blake Prohl, Lucky Jackson, and Jacob Copeland, wide receivers. Down at the bottom, Thayer Thomas as well. Those are all the wide receivers that were waived. Dwayne McBride, Jalen Williams. Luigi Milan, Aaron Dykes.
That's a surprise cut.
Yes, he's the biggest one, in my opinion, right here of the cuts waived.
I think they're trying to sneak him on the practice squad, but I have a feeling he's going to get claimed in the waiver wire process.
Correct. I agree too. T.J. Smith, Ben Whitley, Alan Ali, Jack Snyder, Ben Sims. We already mentioned Thayer Thomas, Seze Otomowo, and Ross Blacklock. I'm happy that he is gone because he has done nothing for the team. I wish you well, brother, but that didn't work out. Waived and injured Abram Beauplan, the linebacker. I didn't even know he was on the team. I'm not going to lie like I did. This was what I hated right here. Juwan Williams here was a second-round draft pick. He's got 5 years of experience. They have a lot of faith in this cornerback.
He came from New England, I believe.
Correct. He was drafted by New England.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Troy Reader, kind of a bit of a surprise. I thought he might have had a shot as well. And Chris Reed is on your reserve/non-football injury there. So, I'm not totally shocked at all these. I think we would all say Luigi Villano is probably the biggest surprise. Hopefully he'll sneak on the practice squad. But 37 of the 53-man roster, 37 in 3 days, a lot. So they're all there. I'll go and slide that up so you guys can check real fast. We'll come back, and then we'll talk about people who did make the team, and I'll show the graphic, but I want to get our faces on there. So this isn't up here the entire time we're talking. So you guys got a good sense of, for the times that they're off and the times we're like, what does the GM and the coach do? I mean, they're pretty damn active in the last month. So
yeah,
I kind of equate them to like school teachers. They might get part of the summer off, but they work year round. So it is what it is. Interesting pieces. 53 will change throughout the season. Absolutely agree with that. Fun fact, not that we're going to talk about many other teams, but as of right now, and I know this will change, I have a feeling since Colt McCoy was waived by the Cardinals, the Patriots only have Mac Jones as the quarterback for the team, like the only quarterback, which is absolute insanity. That's bananas. So I'm sure they're banking on some other
I don't want to completely derail the podcast, but that is an interesting question. Has your opinion on Bill Belichick changed a little bit since Tom Brady is no longer with him?
Slightly above a little bit. He runs that place, and I think Robert Kraft has told him he's earned that right based on all the success they've had. I'm sure he and the GM are like in hand pocket, like that. But man, they have been very average since Tom left, and they've done some stupid things. I think they derailed Mac Jones's growth by putting Matt Patricia in charge of the offense, which is a Bill Belichick thing to do. But yes, a little more than just a little bit. I think he's on the hot seat. If they go 8-9 again, they might be giving him the can. And after they've been winning for 20, 21 years, yeah.
It's interesting because I feel the same way a little bit too. It makes you question how much was Tom Brady just being, the greatest probably quarterback of all time. How much of that was him, and how much of it was Belichick? And
I'll give my 2 cents on that.
Of course, it was both. Of course, it was both. But
yes,
Tom Brady won without Belichick, and we haven't
the first year. And here's the thing: this is why it should never be undermined that he's the greatest of all time. 6 rings in one place is bananas. The Vikings haven't had a championship at all. The Bengals have never had one at all. The Browns, the Lions, a handful of teams, Atlanta Falcons. He has 6 himself. New England has 6 themselves. But he did it the very first year after, and they didn't start out 10-0. They started out rough. And then he finally had to sit the coach down and be like, if you want this shit to work, it's got to go the way I want to work it. The coach had enough decency. Of all people, Bruce Arians, who is like the most outspoken coach, was like, all right, you're the GOAT, man. Do what you want.
Yeah.
Turns it into, I can't believe they won that Super Bowl the year after, and they look good, especially on the defense. But, we'll get back. We'll get back to the Vikings. I thought that was funny, only keeping one quarterback. I was like, they're going to sign someone else. Luigi and Ascensi are my 2 biggest surprises. Jake says also Juwan Williams. Yeah, me too, man. I thought at least one of those 3 would make the team. Luigi's had a good little buzz around his name, but wanted more cornerback depth. But if they don't like it, they don't like it. We agree. I agree with that. I think Kyle does too. It might be time for Bill Belichick to retire. New England can get on to the next chapter for sure. It's coming up. He's not getting any younger. All right, I told you guys we would talk about the team itself, and here's who has made the team. This is brought to you by Sports Illustrated /Fan Nation. This is not ours, but the internet is free, and I am not going to get copyrighted for this, so I don't care. So here we go, boys and girls. Starting out at quarterback, no shock here. We have 3 quarterbacks. I like to move Kirk Cousins, Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall. 3 different styles of play, 3 different levels of play, but they have capable stuff. And I like that they're going to keep this kid on the roster here to see what he has for the future. They can have him for a couple of years and see if he turns
like we were talking about. The rule change allows you to keep that 3rd quarterback. That's a good spot for Jaron Hall. Otherwise, I do believe Minnesota would probably have just ran with only 2 quarterbacks. But hey, you might as well take advantage of it. When you can. You're going to go with Jaron Hall. He'll be your emergency quarterback. Kirk, fingers crossed, he never gets hurt. If he's got to sit out for a play or 2, I definitely believe in Nick Mullins. I like that quarterback room for the Vikings. No shock.
Yeah, and so glad that we don't have Sean Mannion here. We will say that for the next couple of seasons. Thank God he is not on the team. We still have Ham. That's right, Andrew. Jake has an interesting idea. I'd love to see them use Jaron Hall, the 3rd-string quarterback, and Wildcat and stuff like that. Yeah, he can scoot. I like that. I just want to use that.
Here's the thing, though. According to that rule, if he's listed as your emergency quarterback, he's not allowed to play at all unless your first 2 go down. So you could not use him as your emergency, 3rd quarterback in that situation. He would have to be dressed and active. So you can't sneak a sneaky athletic guy and be like, hey, we're just going to run Wildcat with you every now and then. They did think of that before they put this in place.
So you're telling me the NFL is the no fun league? Yeah, we already knew that. Yeah. Fullback pass for the win. I appreciate that comment, Andrew. Going down, 4 running backs and a fullback. So not really a shock here, I guess, because we see Keenan's name at number 2. I guess that injury is not that bad. Maybe he's going to start on the physically unable to perform list. But we have running back Alexander Madison, Keenan Wangwu, Ty Chandler, and fullback C.J. Ham. So C.J. Ham survives another year. Is he the Marcus Sherrills on the offense of this generation?
He's not, because he's actually good. Spoilers.
Well, when it came to punt returns, Marcus was kind of the best too, so it can't totally negate him on that.
Yeah, no,
I'm just saying it's surprising to me that CJ Ham is still employed because fullbacks are a dying breed, but he is good at his job. You are correct.
So I am looking at this, and running back / fullback group is one of the positions where I'm going, there's going to be some movement coming up here. Kenye, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't practiced. I don't think hardly at all this offseason. There's something going on with him injury-wise. So you might be doing that thing where if you put him on injured reserve right now, he would miss the entire season. If you keep him on the roster on week 1, you can then put him on IR, and you can bring him back after either 4 or 6 games. Pardon me, I don't remember exactly what it is. I'm not a rules expert, but you're allowed to bring him back after a short amount of time. So I could see them doing one of those things where you're going to be on the roster week 1, we're going to put you on IR, and then we're going to elevate a practice squad, or we're going to sign someone else off the street to be on the active roster. CJ Ham, I think we're going to see getting the football more often. I think we're going to rely more heavily on honestly him and Madison to run the ball, not to completely knock Ty Chandler. I think he'll get his opportunities, but weirdly, I'm looking at Madison and CJ Ham more as running back 1 and 2 on this roster right now.
I think they provide a similar style as well. They can both catch. They're both kind of bowling balls, and they'll get you. They're not going to break away for 60 yards. I don't think either one of them, unless the screen is set up perfect. But I like both of them. I think they both are deserving of a spot. I'm really excited for Alexander Madison to prove what he can provide, stepping up from RB1 or RB2 to RB1. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we agree too, Jonathan. Look forward to see more CJ Ham. But, yeah, I'm excited for Alexander Madison this year. It's funny that they want to get rid of Dalvin Cook, and then they say we'd like to run the ball, which I think is a little ironic but also I can't wait to see what they come up with. Because in one season, Kevin O'Connell didn't show you his whole hand in the deck. There's more to come with that.
I don't believe for 1 second that they're actually going to commit to running the ball. There's no way.
You guys remember my stat. He needs 59 yards a game to be 1,000-yard rusher. So
right.
When TJ Ham breaks 1,079 yards for this year and he has 8 touchdowns, that's my prediction. 1,079 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Oh boy.
That's not that much in this day and age, but I want to see a 1,000-yard season by his name.
From a fullback, that would be.
No, not a fullback. Kyle West trying to get me in trouble on here. All right. Wide receiver, no big surprises outside of Jalen Reagor, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, Jordan Addison. Jalen Naylor made the team. Shout out to you, my friend. Yeah. Jalen Reagor and Brandon Powell, who has been a mainstay in camp, making some splash plays. I like the receiving core. I think this is one of the strongest units on the team, if not the strongest.
Reagor is here right now. I don't know if I'd be buying a jersey of his anytime soon because the rumors are floating that the Vikings are looking to trade him. I do think that that's a name to look for if they can get value for him. They can move on from him. They're going to look for another team to clear up some cap space, take on his contract. That frees up some cap space because we know they got to sign Justin Jefferson. We know there's something going on with TJ Hawkinson that we'll get to here in a minute, but we're going to need salary cap for either of those two. And Reagor is a name that I think you could part ways with if you can get someone else to bite on that.
Well, there was some Twitter rumor today that, and this is from credible guys like Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, all that a team had reached out about it. So, and Kyle West jumped in the chat immediately and was like, take whatever they're offering. It doesn't matter. Get rid of them. Yeah. Which is hilarious. I like to think in situations like that. I think of like a cartoony kind of thing where it's like, we'll take him for this pick. We'll trade you this, but we also want you to send us a large Pizza Hut stuffed pizza. And if that doesn't happen too, it's not part of the deal. Just because Kyle West wanted to get rid of him so bad, it's like, I'll buy the pizza. Get him out of here. This was interesting, and I love this because I have a small story. 4 tight ends. TJ Hawkinson, Josh Oliver, whom they traded for, I believe, from the offseason or signed. I can't remember if they traded or signed. Johnny Munt, I love that kid. Came over from LA. He makes plays when he needs to. He's kind of the Jarius Wright of the tight end room, which I love. And shout out to Nick Muse having himself a nice preseason to earn a roster spot. My brother, he's a South Carolina Gamecock, if I remember right. My brother was on a plane with him, chatted him up, and he said, I'm very sad that Nick Muse didn't go through on his promise. He said he'd hook me up with tickets to the Vikings-Chargers game, but I don't think that's going to happen. But pretty cool. I like that Nick Muse made it, and I think this is a solid tight end room. I think you have a motley crew of tight ends here that do all sorts of things. We know Josh Oliver is going to block well. TJ Hawkinson does everything well. And I love the depth here because I think they can all provide something there. So we are not short on pass catchers. As Minnesota Viking fans can see, this roster has plenty of people to catch the ball.
Nick Muse played himself a spot on the roster. He really did. I don't think that going into this preseason, the Vikings were planning on carrying 4 tight ends, and Nick Muse was able to get himself a roster spot secured. Jake, you read my mind on exactly where I wanted to go next with TJ Hawkinson, because I think that there's the potential for this to go a little south as well, too, with TJ Hawkinson. So if you connect the dots with a lot of the news stories that we've heard about him, he has not practiced. It's been ear infection or lower back or some nondescript leg injury or something that's keeping him from not being 100%. That always scares me a little bit. And then we've also heard the rumors that TJ Hawkinson and the Minnesota Vikings are really far apart contractually. TJ wants to be the highest paid. He wants to reset the bar for what tight ends are getting paid in the NFL right now. TJ, is he worth that much? Boy, I don't know, but that is how the league works. I think he's the third or fourth best tight end in the NFL, I think, depending on how you want to slice your bread. He's definitely top 5. He's right up in there. You'd be better with him than without him. But this just feels to me like we kept 4 tight ends because there's the potential that either he's not going to play because of injury, there's going to be some kind of weird holdout, or the Vikings have realized that they're not going to be able to pay him and Justin Jefferson a great big huge contract, and we could see him getting dealt before the week 8 trade deadline kicks into effect again. I don't want any of that to happen. I love TJ Hawkinson. I want to see him get that contract and stay with the Minnesota Vikings, but that's a situation to look out for. And as soon as I seen 4 tight ends on the roster, I was like, oh, they're preparing for him to screw the team over somehow. Like, that's just lifelong Vikings fan in me what's coming with this.
I don't think that's going to happen. I understand that you have the concern. I'm slightly concerned. So I'd say my concern level is 2.5 out of 10. He's got to know that Justin Jefferson is more valuable than him, not only to the team, but the NFL, and he's going to get paid first. The rumor mill says that they're trying to get Justin Jefferson extended before the season starts, which would be incredible.
Which, yes, I mean, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, and I don't care how big of a fan of TJ Hawkinson you are, there is no fan of this team that would argue with Jefferson getting a contract done first. Like, that's your number 1, 2, and 3 priority as a franchise right now.
Yeah, and this is a good point, Andrew. If he ends up forcing his way out or the Vikings deal him, I will consider this a colossal fuck up from Kwesi. And I know that it's player driven, but we gave up a 2nd round draft pick. Do you understand the caliber of player the Vikings have found in the 2nd round?
It makes you wonder too if the genesis of this is, well, why were the Lions so willing to trade him?
100%.
In the first place.
Yes.
Did Detroit know that this was coming down the pipeline and was able to send their problem to Minnesota and get a 2nd round pick in return? I hate doing this because I hate being this negative Vikings podcast that has to talk about this. But of all the subjects, of all the roster moves to talk about right now, I think that's the one that's probably the most concerning.
It is concerning, and trust me, Kyle just said it. I will say it. Adam would echo it too. We want TJ Hawkinson on the team because he is a playmaker and a game changer.
Yeah.
Outside of Kelsey, Kittle, and Mark Andrews, he is number 4 out of 32. That's very respectable and honorable to be that high. You're in the top 5 in your position group.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a position group where teams carry 2 on the field a lot, and you're number 4. But the negative to it, and I'll end it on the positive, the negative is, like I said, I think that'll be a colossal failure if this doesn't work because you gave up draft capital. I don't know, maybe you get a 3rd or a 4th for him, but I doubt they're going to get a 2nd in return. I doubt you're going to make it back. So you're trying to make pennies on the dollar in return. That I don't want. I want him to find a way. And the positive would be, I think they will find a way. And even more of a positive than keeping TJ Hawkinson on the team and paying him like he wanted to be and deserves to be, that only points in the direction that they're going to draft a quarterback. Because if you have all this money tied with Darren Saul's going to get paid later, JJ's going to get paid soon, and TJ Hawkinson gets paid, how are you going to pay for a quarterback?
You're not.
You're going to draft one is what's going to happen. That's it. And that's what I want them to do. And I'm on the Drake May from North Carolina train. Make it freaking happen. Last time I'll say that this episode. You'll probably hear me say that. Going down the list here, getting to the big boys. This is what concerned me. Oli Udoh is still on the team. What the hell?
He's terrible, but he's the best we've got, which is concerning.
Which means they need to fire scouts and they need to do a better job. That's all I can say about that. Christian Darrisaw, Ed Cleveland, Garrett Bradbury, Ed Ingram, Brian O'Neill. That's your starting 5 on the offensive line. Yep. Backups, Austin Schlottman, Blake Brandel, and Oli Udoh. So you have some interchangeable pieces in these 3 at the end.
Right.
Center guard, tackle guard, and then just a tackle.
Yeah. Schlotman, Brandel, and Udo do have that versatility, so you can plug and play. I would like to see one more lineman in that group somewhere. So maybe they sign someone in free agency or make a trade or bring someone in somewhere. I could see them adding some depth on that line.
Yeah, we agree, Drake. O-line depth, at least one more would be great. I hear there's a guy that visited with the Vikings that we should take a look at, but I don't know. I digress. Switching it to the defense, on the defensive big boys side, Harrison Phillips, Dean Lowry. Shout out to Dean Lowry. I mean, he was pretty good with the Packers. I hope he shows form with us. Tonga made it. I'm so pumped for him. Jonathan Bullard made it, and Jacqueline Roy, draft pick, all made the team. Shout out to those guys. Nothing too surprising there. I think this is kind of a little underwhelming of a group, but I'm excited to see what Flores does starting in the front with these guys.
Am I allowed to say I keep forgetting Harrison Phillips is on this team?
I don't forget about him. You know who I keep forgetting that Jonathan Bullard has a job.
Yeah.
But I'm excited that Tonga made it. I'm a big fan of his.
All these guys are going to look so much better underneath Brian Flores. All of them.
There's a name on here I don't see. Okay, just kidding. He's number 2. He's right in my face. Just kidding. Edge rushers. Daniil Hunter. Patrick Jones, I was looking for him. Pat Jones second, Marcus Davenport, DJ Wanham, and Andre Carter. Now, I like that group a whole lot more than the D-line, so I'm very excited for the pass rushers here.
I'm a fan of DJ Wanham. I like what he brings to the table. Patrick Jones.
Pat Jones, they've shown very big flashes in multiple parts. The key here is Marcus Davenport. If he can just be half of what we expect him to, I would love that. I would love that a lot. Here's the biggest story of the roster right here. Jordan Hicks,
Ivan Pace.
Ivan Pace in second place here, an undrafted free agent. Now, we will say this. If you looked at his tape and you looked at his rating, like for Pro Football Focus and stuff, it jumps off the page. It just happened to be at a small school. Yeah. Super pumped for him. But Jordan Hicks, Ivan Pace, Brian Asamoah, and Troy Dye. I love this linebacker room. I know it's a lot of prove-it guys. We've had better core guys before. But, man, I think this is going to be a scrappy linebacker bunch.
This is a different group from what we were used to underneath the Mike Zimmer defense. This is not Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr. Like, you've got, like you said, you've got Ivan Pace and Troy Dye and guys out there that are, hey, you got to prove it. I mean, when Jordan Hicks, and I'm not knocking him, but when he's kind of like your veteran of the group, you've got some proving to do out there. But I think that's a good group, man. Brian Asamoah, I like him a lot. Ivan Pace is a story that you talk about, a success story on playing your way on a roster, and he will be active and contributing on game days out there for the Vikings. That's fun. You like your Adam Thielen stories? Well, here's your new one in that vein. Here's your Ivan Pace Jr. for the Minnesota Vikings.
Big fan of his. And like we said earlier, a couple months ago, a month and a half ago, he's been the star of training camp, and he's kind of made his case. Kind of knew early on that he had a good shot to make it. So he makes the 53. We love you, man. We're rooting for you. Loving to see the second-year ascension of Asamoah and Troy Dye. He's a baller too. Jordan Hicks is Jordan Hicks. I have no worries about him. I have faith in him. He's your everyday starting linebacker. So I'm happy with this group. I love the potential of the linebacking group, and I'm going to err on the positive side.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but is the linebacker position devalued a little bit in the NFL? It's not the. I don't think
it's not a big name as it used to be. You're right.
Right. It's not as much of a focal point. You want your corners and you want your safeties out there. Those are your bigger positions.
Well, what's going to happen? Things come in waves, and it's kind of like with music and fashion, right? You always go back, and we go in like that infinity circle where it leads one way, comes back eventually. I can only name like one or two, like, oh my God, hardcore linebackers in the NFL. Like Fred Warner comes to mind. He's a beast. If you're counting Von Miller as a linebacker, obviously his name comes up. But it'll come back to that because right now, if you notice with the game, back in the day, these receivers hated being slot guys. They didn't want to go to the middle because their head taken off. And now everybody attacks the middle of the field. That's why Travis Kelce has a job. Every catch of his is over the middle in some like 7 route or some slant where it's like, oh, I'm open for 20 yards. They're going to have to 100%.
They changed the rules, and you can't blast a defenseless receiver going across the middle anymore, and suddenly that opens up for an opportunity for all these other guys to play that position. And yeah, you're right. I do think that part of those rule changes and the way that defenses are played now is that the linebacker you don't need, that's part of the reason too why Ivan Pace makes the roster. I can talk myself into it live on the air. You don't need your big bodied Chad Greenway out there. You can roll with a little bit smaller of a linebacker now. So a guy like an Ivan Pace that you say was undersized, he might have been undersized 10 years ago. He probably fits in perfectly in the way the game is played today. He's a speedy thumper who can cover crossways across the field, and he can get after the quarterback.
I think later on we'll have more of the Bobby Wagners and the guys like that come back and change the game. But for right now, I think I agree with you, man. Linebacker's been a little devalued just because of the way the game's changed and shaped, but it'll keep changing and evolving. Mm-hmm. Certainly what's changed and evolved from last year, and I like the upside here. We'll just hope that these guys stay healthy. Byron Murphy is a freaking stud. I just need you to stay healthy, my dude. He's a cornerback one on almost every team. They're taking a lot of faith with Caleb Evans. I like his size. I don't like his injury history, but that's fine. Mekhi Blackman, he's got some potential. I like him. Andrew Booth did make the team. I think they're doing him the due diligence of being a high draft pick.
Dude, you have to. He was a second round pick from the new administration. Like they can't already be like, hey, we're sorry we fucked up already on a second round draft pick. That's a good way to get yourself out of a job.
Mean, you can chime that back to Jalen Reagor. He underwhelmed very much, but they still kept him around for 2 or 3 years. And they had him there for at least 2 years because last year was JJ's 3rd season and he was on the team. So you got to keep him at least 2 years. If he can stay healthy, I like that he plays physical. So I'm not going to poop on Andrew Booth Jr. until he's off the team, and I hope that's not for a while.
He needs to stay healthy, and he needs to stay on the field before I can form a solid opinion about about Andrew Booth.
And I like Najee Thompson. Man, he is going to do some things on special teams, and if that speed can be shown on the outside, he can make some splash plays. With that comes the risk of getting burned and getting turned to toast with being hips, out of place and all that. But he's going to do wonderful for us on special teams. He's one of my favorite watches of the preseason. So I'm happy he made the team well in the starting lineup.
I think there's still some movement to be made here at the corner position. I don't think this is 100% set. I could see the Minnesota, if there is a surprise veteran corner who is released that Brian Flores likes, who feels can step in and can contribute, you sign him. You bring him into that group. You need more of a veteran presence right now in there. I'm not sold on rolling with this cornerback group. And I still think, as we do this 53, if we project forward into next year's draft, what am I doing in the first round, guys? I'm taking another corner.
That inner Mike Zimmer, and we're tracking the corner again, baby.
We're taking another corner, man. It's like I'm still just not sold on this group.
I'm going to fight you on that. We're not taking a corner in the first round because we're going to go get the quarterback in the future, and then we'll worry about that later.
Yeah,
which sucks, but you know what? It is what it is.
I know.
Cap's going to go up. They already have $10 million in space, and if they don't use it this offseason or during the season,
I understand. And we talked ourselves into it all off season on you got to jettison the older players, blah, 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 blah. It's the right thing to do. But as we are sitting here looking at the roster, how much would you love to have Patrick Peterson in this corner right now?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I get why they did it, and I was on board with it. But when it comes right down to it, I guess that's the Mike Zimmer in me is like, God damn it, we need Patrick Peterson.
He would have been great to play with Zim a little longer. I know he liked him a lot. I'm trying to see. I don't want quarterback. I want safety. Who's coming up in 2024? Who's going to be a free agent at safety? I'm on Spot Track right now. It's just taking a second to load. Oh, Buda Baker from Arizona. Micah Hyde. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. See, there's some good names.
So there's some guys out there if they're available, and
Sean Gibson, Mike Evers, Darnell Savage. There's some good free agents coming up.
That's a story to look into. Buda
because
Baker,
Harrison Smith's he's not gonna be here next year. I firmly believe he's either gonna retire or try to chase money for one last hurrah. But I don't feel okay. And that's a good transition. This is one of the surprising things for me too. I don't know how many safeties a team normally keeps. I feel like 6 is a lot, and I feel like one of these spots could have went to another lineman or another corner. But I also think that these guys at the end, like Jay Ward and Theo Jackson, they'll be hybrid corners as well.
Yeah, and I also look at this list and think, one of those guys, Jay Ward or Theo Jackson, even though I've heard good things about Theo Jackson, but one of those is going to get released closer to the season to get put on the practice squad, and they're going to bring in another corner or another lineman or a running back or one of those other positional groups that we talked about, because this is, Harrison Smith, Cam Bynum, Josh Metellus, Lewis Seam, Jay Ward, Theo Jackson. That's a lot of safeties to carry into your regular season right now. And you got to believe that the Vikings want to have a healthy dose of Lewis Seam out there on the field. We know that Smith and Bynum are going to probably be your starters, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But you got to mix in, again, like I said with Andrew Booth, Lewis Seam was your first-round pick.
First pick ever for this regime.
Yeah, that's not a good look if you're burying him on the depth chart, which that's not what I think is happening. But they don't want to send the message that their first-round pick is not good. He's going to get playing time.
I think he'll be fine, too. And like I said, to talk you guys into it, I know this is not what it is. I understand we're doing a little bit of make-believe here and doing this like, well, I dress my pony how I want it. Well, I'm just calling Lewis Seam a rookie this year because he missed the whole damn season with a nasty injury. So this is he got a mulligan. He's a rookie in my eyes.
Damn, look at this headline. This is not Vikings related, but boy, the NFL is a rough business. Jaguars head coach Doug Peterson cut his son, Josh, on roster deadline day. Motherfucker cut his own son. Nepotism doesn't always get you a job in the NFL unless you were the son of a staff member of the Minnesota Vikings, in which case we will promote you to positions you are not qualified for.
I can't poop on that because Adam Zimmer did pass away, and that sucks.
Yeah,
that sucks a lot. But
I was also talking about Clint Kubiak.
Yeah, I remember that as well. Ooh.
Yeah.
Glad we moved on from that. Good luck, Clint, wherever you are. And rounding out the roster spots here, and I'll get out of this sharing the screen stuff, but no changes in the special teamers. God, you love to see that. I need some consistency there. Yep. We don't have the carousel and the merry-go-round of what kicker plays for our team this year until he inevitably fucks the game up for us. Greg Joseph, welcome back. Ryan Wright, the thick boy punter, welcome back. And our all-pro long snapper, Andrew DePaula. Thank you, sir. That rounds out the 53-man roster. And we'll just do a quick overview of the initial 53. And I'll look at this while you guys – it's not on your screen, it's on mine. But 3 quarterbacks, love that. Running back room may change. I like that Kime is back. He's not ready to play yet, but that means his injury is not as bad as we thought. Shout out to Brandon Powell. Shout out to Nick Muse. We need one more lineman somewhere. They need to fix that. D-line is the D-line.
They're going to bring in a lineman. I really believe lineman is coming.
They have to.
Yeah.
They've got to figure that out. The D-line's the D-line. The edge rushers are great. Promising linebacker core. A lot of rookie stuff there, so be prepared for some hiccups. But I'm pumped that there's youth there. Cornerback room is an injury or two away from being a complete shit show. So
not even an injury or two. It could just be a complete shit show.
Well, I have faith in Byron Murphy, but we don't know how any of these others, because it's not like every team only has one good wide receiver. So these other guys are going to have to step up. So we'll see. 6 safeties is weird. Maybe they'll change that. And then the special teamers are great. They're going to stay. So I love that a lot. But nothing too crazy. I think Luigi Villan we talked about was probably the biggest surprise. Maybe he'll get stashed on the practice squad. But other than that, keep your eyes out. Hopefully there will be Justin Jefferson news. possibly
way this
maybe.
roster was set coming into training camp, all the cuts that would have previously been surprise cuts were done months ago when they cleaned house, when they got rid of Patrick Peterson and Adam Thielen and Eric Kendricks and who else? Who am I forgetting? All the veterans that this team, Dalvin Cook, all the veterans that this team moved on for. Like, our surprise cuts happened months ago. So really, you could sit down, of all the years to sit down, this was the year that as a fan you could do it and come pretty darn close to what the final 53 was going to look like, because it's not that there wasn't a lot of competition, but you knew what they were doing at quarterback. You knew what they were pretty well doing at wide receiver. You pretty well knew what they were doing at most of these positions, give or take a couple guys play themselves on the roster or whatnot.
I agree, man. I'll put a comment up here. We'll round the show out because we're going to hit right at an hour, and I'm really happy we got to talk about this. But next week, as I type 1, 2, you do that thing where you type 2 letters in caps and you have to go all the way back and change it.
Yep.
It's a lot of fun. Next week, we will do week 1 prediction. And we'll let you know what we think is going to happen. Remember, guys, next Sunday on 9/11 will be the kickoff of the Vikings season. Next Thursday will be the Chiefs and the Lions kicking the season off. Pumped to watch that game. But we'll do on next week's episode a week 1 prediction. We are home to start the season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Baker Mayfield. The Vikings will be wearing their throwback uniforms. I am so overly excited for that. Can't wait. I'm also excited for myself. Not that you guys care, but I'm going to 2 Vikings games in a row this year.
Nice. So which one's you going to?
So I'm going home for my brother's baby shower the first weekend in October. They just happen to play the Panthers in my hometown. Not going to miss that. And then the following week, I'm taking a trip to Minnesota for the first time, seeing U.S. Bank for the first time.
Nice.
And I'm going to watch the Kansas City Chiefs absolutely destroy the shit out of us and probably end my win streak as a fan watching this team. I'm 4-0 at Viking games, but crazier things have happened, right? Who knows? Maybe they'll be out of sorts or something. But I'm excited. The season is right upon us. We've got 1 more week to kind of chill, and we'll see. Hopefully the next news we talk about is Justin Jefferson getting an extension. He's about to get that quarterback money at wide receiver. We're excited for him.
This team's about to be broke.
They're going to be having some deep investments here soon. So, but if anybody's worth it, it's definitely Jettas. So we're excited for that to happen. If that happens, we'll cover it. Next week, we'll talk about week 1 prediction. Adam could not be with us tonight. He had oral surgery recently, and he said if he was on, he would barely talk at all. So he let us go ahead and have the double Kyle show. So thank you all for putting up with that. I think we were very professional tonight.
Yeah.
Unusual for us, but
minimal side tangents. How can we talk about Joe Webb and that Eagles game before we close out this podcast?
Let's talk about the Josh Freeman against the Giants game and just put everybody in a shit mood before we leave.
Those are our standby topics for some reason.
Yeah, always haunting our dreams. The Viking Age. You should go to thevikingage.com. Our own Adam Carlson right here at MNVikingsZombie writes for the Viking Age. If you click on his articles, you pump his numbers up and you help pay his bills. We always will talk about that on the show. We love you, Adam. You can follow him on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, Instagram and Twitch at these handles right here. They're all the same. He's a great writer. We also have some stuff in the archives on his YouTube channel under the same name of our horror movie reviews. I'd really like to get back into that with him here soon. That'll be fun. Kyle West, find him on Twitter at Vaguely Square. Other social media that he has.
You sure can. I am going to get my photography website back in order. I haven't updated it for way longer than I should have, but I'll get back to doing that now that I actually have a computer that I can do that kind of work on again. So, that makes life a hell of a lot easier.
I have a friend asking me, they were like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Podcasting, currently talking about football. Sounds fun. Do you think you guys will win this year?" I said, "Nope, they're going to suck, and I am prepared." I've already anticipated heartbreak so many times. So I am ready to be heard again, as Steve Carell said in The Office. Here's the link for Kyle West Photography and Purple People Podcast merch. For our audio listeners, it is Kyle West 84, like Randy Moss's number, .picfair, PICFAIR.com. Can't brag enough. You already plugged it, but I'll help you again. He's a great photographer. He's got a lot of cool places he gets to shoot in his hometown. And if you do some of those prints, you can check it out. Get some prints of his work of your own. Or if you like the Purple People Podcast, which I should have been a better host and worn a shirt of ours, you can get Purple People Podcast merch on shirts, mouse pads, coffee mugs, phone cases, everything you can think of there. And I'll give the reminder, because I'm not doing fantasy football ever again. Not ever in my life. I will do the Survival League, though, because I think that's a lot more fun and simple. If you don't have the reminder, you'll get an email next week. Set your lineup, pick your winners, all right? The Survival League happens every year on this show and this channel, and I provide, along with Kyle and Adam, free, yes, FREE, free 50, free gifts to the winner. So Purple People Podcast merch and maybe something small, cool, Vikings related on the side. So I wanted to throw that back out there. Last but not least, this is my handle at NCDogDude. I just wanted to talk about my life for 1 minute before we get off of here. I am in Richmond, Virginia now. I am here for the long haul. My son is 40 minutes away. We celebrated our first day of work and school last night, and I can't tell you guys, if you're a parent and you've been away from your children and you finally get back, the feeling that I have is irreplaceable. I'm pumped to be here. I wish that I had a better place to put my computer. My apartment is really long. It's a weird layout, so I have no room in the bedrooms to put this anywhere. So sorry for the not so climactic background, but I'm here. I'm excited to meet up with some fans that I met in the Twitter spaces. Maybe an hour south. I'm definitely going to check some games out with those guys, but life is good. I hope everybody is doing well, and man, I'm just excited for ball. I'm so excited for this season. Let's see if the momentum carries. Let's see if we shock everyone, and let's see if the Detroit Lions are really all they're hyped up to be, because I don't buy it. I'll say that. But we'll be back next week. Kyle, you got anything else?
Nope, I think that'll do it.
Awesome, man. Well, in the words of Adam Carlson, we want to thank everybody for joining in on the show. If you haven't already, hit the like and the subscribe button on this show. Ring that notification bell on your YouTube app or on your browser. It will let you know in advance when I schedule these things and let you know how to be a part of it, because we've had almost double digits the whole night.
Excellent.
A lot of comments too. So if you want to get in here and give your thoughts on pretty much anything, we'll bring it up. We'll talk about it. And we appreciate all the regulars. We'll be back next week. Take care of yourselves. Be nice to each other. And until then, stay classy, Minnesota.